Hey scoundrels, how's everyone doing? Today is a video where I'm going to cover a build that is a little bit off meta, and when I say off meta, I think it's coming into the meta. I think people originally saw it as a joke build, and then some people have actually started playing this in my ranked games. I've noticed this at Diamond 1 to Master level. I don't know if it's the same at your guys' levels or wherever you are respectively. I've seen it in a few Challenger lobbies that I've been watching as well. This was originally a meme build. People thought it was just a bit of a joke. People thought, well, this can't really be competitively viable. But I have been playing around with it, and I genuinely think that this build is pretty solid. So I'm going to talk about the early game to the late game and to the mid game and to the late game of this build. Now, early game, you can play whatever you like realistically. So you can play a Brawler Blaster start, you could play a Vanguard start, you can play a Cybernetic start, but if you want to play like the Chrono start, this is what I do for the Chrono start. Now remember, when I talk about early game, I really feel like you guys should have a general idea about what is strong early game, and if you don't, I've got a guide on that in the Silver to Diamond guide. I've got a little bit where I talk about early game builds, but this is how I usually end up. This is the way I've been playing it so far, because I like to get the Caitlyn, especially because the Caitlyn gets harder to get the more levels that you go up. So if you get a Caitlyn on the board, you want to keep her there until the late game, so she's always a nice little unit to have. So level 3, I usually end up with something like this, but of course it could be Cybernetics, it could be anything that you want in the early game. Level 4, I ditch the what's he called? That knobber. I ditch that guy, and then I end up getting four Chrono. So I end up playing 4 Chrono, usually. I either have the Caitlyn on this side or the Caitlyn on this side, doesn't really matter. Basically, she's probably going to be grabbed at some point. That's kind of why I've got her there. And eventually at level 5, I'm going to add in the Ashe. When I get the Ashe, I usually don't want her to get grabbed, so I kind of like move everything back a little bit and put Twisted Fate as my Blitzcrank bait. And this will be my level 5 composition. So that's what I do from the early game to the mid game, and Ashe is kind of like the unit that I'm looking to keep. In terms of itemization, there's lots of different ways that you can play the itemization, but there are a couple of crucial items, but the most crucial item is Shojins. So Shojins, in my opinion, is the most crucial item that this build can have. Now, you can go double Shojins if you really want to, depending on items, but actually one of the more effective combos is Shojins plus Runans, because it gives you a little bit of attack speed, and the bolts actually generate mana because the bolts apply on-hit effects, and Shojins is an on-hit effect after casting the first. So you end up with a little bit less starting mana, but you generate a little bit more mana after you've cast your first ability. In terms of last item for her, you can go super aggressive with a Gwinsu's, which is just super high attack speed. You would have to make sure that she's always safe from being Blitzcrank hooked or whatever. You can play more defensive with a Trap Claw. You can play more defensive with a Quicksilver or a GA. But I generally like to play this like full throttle build, so I like to play with the Gwinsu's. Again, if you don't find a Runans, you can double Shojins. If you don't have, if you've only got 1 Shojins and no Runans, you can play Shojins plus Gwinsu's, which is perfectly fine as well. The one item that you just need, you need at least 1 Spear of Shojin. It's better with more ways to generate mana, like Runans and extra Spears of Shojin, but you need at least 1 Spear of Shojin. When it comes to going a little bit later into the game, you're obviously going to want to get to 6 Chrono. So 6 Chrono is the breakpoint. This is level 7. You are going to add the Ezreal. I like to add the Ezreal either just above the Ashe or replace them like this, so Ashe is a little bit further forward. The sniper bonus does matter though, so make sure that you are taking use of the sniper bonus where you can. Defensive, if you have a Trap Claw or a Quicksilver, you can put her in the corner. If you don't put her in the corner. And then obviously you're going to want the Wukong, so the Wukong comes in as well. I end up just more like frontlining these guys like this. And so this was what the build would look like. I sometimes put Ashe here, Twisted Fate there, and then Ezreal there or whatever. That even, could even potentially crowd it with the Caitlyn. It really depends. Like the position of this is quite flexible, but this is kind of what I end up like most of the time. Maybe put him a little bit more central so he sort of gets more mana generation in the early game. Then at level 8, what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap out Twisted Fate for a Thresh. This is a really important addition. And then I'm going to add myself a Kassadin. Where is Kassadin? Here. I'm going to add myself a Kassadin. The reason I add Kassadin is it gets me the Celestial bonus. So this is your overall level 8 composition. Any extra itemization that you may find, I think a Morellonomicon works really nicely on Wukong. Thief's Gloves. Now, Thief's Gloves can either go onto Ezreal or Caitlyn. In the example I'm going to show you, they went on to Caitlyn, and Ezreal just kind of gets the scraps of the items, and then Wukong gets some defensive items. So that's basically how it goes. That's kind of like the full composition. At level 9, you can add whatever you want in, realistically. If you get a Celestial Orb, you can add a Lulu and get 4 Celestial, which is pretty awesome. But this is basically the crux of the composition. Positioning-wise, like I said, it's quite flexible. What I ended up doing was I ended up getting another Thresh at level 9, so I ended up just running with 2 Threshes. And kind of played like that. I can't remember if I moved these guys backwards or not. It's difficult to remember. But yeah, basically I either put the Ashe a little bit further forward like that, and then put the Thresh down here, so the Ashe is kind of more surrounded. But you just want to play around, make sure you're avoiding infiltrators, make sure Ashe is protected if you don't have any defensive items. If you've got a defensive item like a Trap Claw or a Quicksilver, she can go in the corner, so it doesn't really matter. But really, just again, Shojin's is the most important item. You can combo that with Guinsoo's or whatever you want, really. Now we're going to go through a game. So, game-wise, carousel priority. I like to go for the tier. I know that's a little bit contested when it comes to Star Guardian Sorcerer, but I do like the tier as a first item. Otherwise, I go for the BF Sword. I think, again, the most important item to find is the Spear of Shojin. So it's really important to get that because it's the item that helps Ashe generate mana. It's the whole point of the build is for Ashe to spam basic attacks to generate more mana so that she can just randomly throw her arrow out time and time again. That's essentially what we're looking for the most part. Other items that you can prioritize are things like Recurve Bow, because you can make a Guinsoo's or a, what's it called? Runans with it. Or you can go for the Negatron Cloak, because that'll get you a QSS or a Runans as well. But realistically, you're looking for BF Sword and Tier as a priority in terms of items. You need Shojins, and a double Shojins is perfectly fine as well, as you'll see in this game. This was not a perfect game for me, by the way. I was definitely kind of just testing out what I could do and kind of utilizing different aspects. But you can see I'm just running with the sort of the early start of the Twisted Fate and Caitlyn. I actually throw in Illusion just a little bit further before this because I feel like it's just a bit better overall. I didn't really have the best start though, no 2 stars or anything like that, so it's not like we could sort of snowball this out of control. We didn't really have the most active of starts here for this game. So as you can see right now, I swap in the Caitlyn and the Twisted Fate, and I actually quite like the Caitlyn Twisted Fate combo as a 1-2 chrono. The reason being is because in a lot of the early fights that generally tend to go quite long, you can actually end up killing off 1 or 2 units. So in this particular scenario, you can see the fights just go on forever because there's not enough burst damage in the early game to get people down. So the 2 chrono bonus actually works out really well to generate a loss streak. You can see I didn't really have any strong units. I literally just had a Twisted Fate with a tier. And I'm debating leveling up this Twisted Fate right now. The reason being is I'm like, well, like, I'm going to have to sell that Twisted Fate to get the tier eventually, but as long as I pick up another Twisted Fate along the way, I know that he's going to be getting, I guess, removed for a Thresh eventually. And I want to just show you another, situation here. Yes, my Caitlyn got immediately blown up, but we got 1 kill. And again, when you're lose streaking, one of the most important things is just, can I kill units? Like, obviously, the way the changes happen to player damage is that the less units that you kill, the more damage that you take. So this is why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. It's just because I just want to kill as many units as physically possible every time. So the 2 chrono bonus really helps you do that. And that's why I've combined this Twisted Fate. Because even though I'm going to sell him later on, I'm not really playing for this stage of the game. The thing that I'm playing for the most is just attempting to kill as many units as physically possible. I killed 1 unit here. That's about all I'm going to get. But 1 unit killed is better than no units killed. And that's actually saving me a lot of HP cumulatively over the course of this game. So I actually go for the tier because there is no BF Sword. I would have gone for the BF Sword if that were the case. And what you're going to see me do is something a little bit I wouldn't recommend doing this if you're in a better position than I am, but I was in a pretty rough position in terms of itemization. So what I did is I ended up making a static Shiv in this instance. I was basically like, okay, we have another tier. Let's just make a static Shiv. The reason being is I actually wanted to use the static Shiv for the chrono buff to attempt to save as much HP as physically possible. And static Shiv is not a bad item in a chrono composition because you're going to attack a lot. So if I give that to the Ashe, it's going to give her some immediate attack speed, which is fine. It's going to give her some starting mana, which is also good. And with the chrono bonus, she is going to actually deal a significant amount of damage with static Shiv. So static Shiv is not a bad item in a chrono composition because you're going to end up attacking a lot and doing a lot of basic attacks. And that is not a bad item, but it is not optimal. If you are in a better position than I would not recommend going for the static Shiv. What you'll notice is on round 2-3, I did sell to get to 10 gold, and now we are at 2-6, just before the Krugs. We are actually in a really strong position in terms of economy. Not really so much in terms of board state or the units that we've got, but in terms of economy, we're in a really good spot right now. We're killing off, a couple of units every round. We're maintaining a really, really controlled loss streak. We've only lost 22 HP by the Krugs, which is actually really important. Now comes the big decision. do we have what it takes to beat the Krugs, which I was kind of deliberating it, but actually I thought with the Twisted Fate having the static shiv, if he didn't have the static shiv, I think we would have lost. And we've got the brawler bonus for my Malphite and my Blitzcrank. I actually think I was pretty confident that we had enough sort of damage and also sustainability to beat this, and we kind of did in the end. So you see we now at 50 gold, and what I'm going to do now is level. It's most important, and I think the level that you want to roll at for this composition is probably 6 or 7. Mainly because you want a Wukong 2-star. That's a really, really important addition. But also you want to make sure you're getting a 2-star Ashe. You want a 2-star Ashe, 2-star Ezreal helps, 2-star Blitzcrank and Shen are also really good. But level 7 is just a good round to roll on, because you're going to have a high chance of finding Ashe, but also you're going to have a good chance of finding the Wukong as well. So it's a really, really important role, a level to actually get to for this composition. And also level 7 is where this composition actually comes online. So I find the Wukong at level 5, which is actually quite lucky because it's only a 5% chance. But again, you know, we're aiming to go to level 7 as quickly as possible. Obviously, there is some situations where I may need to roll to stabilize, but we really want to get to level 7 just purely for the Chrono bonus. At level 6, if you don't have the Ashe, you can actually just play 6 Chrono, which is perfectly good. But I want you to notice that we are still doing really well in controlling the loss streak. We are taking damage each round, and we're taking more and more damage as we go along, but we are definitely controlling the loss streak right now. And you can see we find the Shen, we do a little bit of rolling here, and then we level up. And now we have essentially got 6 Chrono, or almost 6 Chrono. We're just waiting on a Ezreal. So we're basically waiting for an Ezreal at this point in time. So right now, we are going to be level 6 next turn. We basically want to find the Ezreal. If we find the Ezreal, we can start to actually limit the damage that we're taking. You might wonder why I sold the Twisted Fate with the items on and replaced him with the Twisted Fate with no items on. Yeah, that was a mistake. We definitely didn't want to do that. We go for the BF sword here. The beautiful thing about loose streaking is you usually get your choice of item on the carousel, so we have at least 1 Shojins now, which is really strong. But yeah, we definitely didn't want to sell that Twisted Fate. That was a complete error on my part. And should not have been done. So if you're in the same situation as me, do not sell your Twisted Fate ASAP. But we find the Ezreal, which is really nice. That's going to give us the 6 Chrono, and we now also have the Shojins, which is also really important. We're aiming now to go to level 7. We can do this in 2 ways. We can either roll to level 7 now, or we can try and play it more casually and just kind of like kind of wait and use the interest, and that's what we're going to do right now. We're using the 6 Chrono bonus. We're just going to try and wait and use the interest. We are losing quite a lot, as you can see. So actually, you know, maybe in hindsight, going to level 7 straight away with my stacked Ashe would have been the play. We level up the next turn to level 7, and now this is kind of like what I'm doing with my positioning. I'm just going to roll a little bit. You're going to see me roll down a lot. What I'm looking for are just 2 stars of all of my important carries. I actually skipped over a Caitlyn there, but that's perfectly okay. And we're looking for a 2-star Ashe as well. Caitlyn is not really useful in this comp other than just to give me the 6 Chrono and Sniper bonus, but she doesn't really need to deal any damage. But you can just see immediately how much more powerful my composition has become. Purely because of just adding that Ashe with the what's it called? The Shojins. Now, I do something a little bit funny here. I should just straight away add a double Shojins to the Ashe, but I ended up not doing that. I ended up adding the Shojins to the Ezreal. Not really sure what the thought process was between the Shojins on the Ezreal. Just because I was like, well, why? So I put it on the Ezreal. I'm not really sure why. I think it's because I was testing like what a static shiv plus a Shojins is like for Ashe generating her own mana. So I really should have just put that on the Ashe. What you'll end up seeing me doing later is like I'm actually not generating enough mana. I end up selling the Ezreal, and then I end up giving that Shojins back over to the Ashe. So again, this is just me testing out a couple of things with this build, and so what I'd recommend is that, yes, if you do not have a Runans, you probably do need 2 Shojins on the Ashe. If you do have a Runans, you probably only need 1 Shojins on the Ashe. But as you can see, I'm just kind of chilling now. I'm going to add a Trap Claw to my Ezreal so I can put him in the back line. And now that the main things that we're looking for is another Caitlyn or any Caitlyns. We did skip over a few. My bad. I generally tend to skip over units when I'm rushing, especially ones that I'm not particularly keeping an eye out for. We're also going to be looking for a Thresh. As well as going to level 8 to add the Kassadin. But I just want to show you just how strong this comp actually is when it gets going, we are beating units, we're beating a double Infinity Edge Irelia, which is just really strong. Really, really, really strong. We're actually in a really good spot with the composition right now. So I find the 2-star Ashe, which is really important. The 2-star Ashe is a big upgrade. 3-star Ashe would make this comp insane, but obviously with the position that I was in this game, I wasn't really about to eco and just slow roll for an Ashe 3. What I was looking for primarily was just to get to a point where I could stabilize my HP. But yeah, I mean, you can just see, like, I want to show you just like Ashe constantly ulting, which is just really funny. That's what I love about this composition. It's just super good. And 6 Chrono is often underrated as well. I think 6 Chronos are just a great composition in general. So I can't remember what I go for here. I think I end up going for a Nizlad Rod. Yeah, I go for the Rod, I think because I was looking to potentially get a Gwynsus for my Ashe. I think that's what I was thinking. My last item for the Ashe was going to be a Gwynsus over a Shojin's, but I don't think I ever actually find the recurve bow. I had a recurve bow really early on, and I used it to make that static shiv because I wanted to protect my HP as much as possible. But I think when we get to the next neutral round, I find that I don't actually get the Gwynsus, which is why I need to end up going double Shojin's on the Ashe. I think with Gwynsus, maybe the single Shojin's might have been enough, especially with the static shiv. But I think with just the one, Shojin's and static shiv, it's not actually enough to get Ashe to ult consistently enough. So what you're seeing here is me just saving up economy. I'm looking to go to level 8, and as soon as I find a Thresh, I will just actually go to level 8. So I'm looking to go to level 8 as soon as I find the Thresh, and if I then at level 8 can add the Kassadin, that's great because it's going to give me the Celestial bonus, and with the Chrono, it means you're going to be life stealing a lot because of the attack speed. It's just very strong. I like the Morellos on Wukong as well because it generally affects a lot of people. So he can ult and then just hit a load of people with his ultimate, and they take a lot of damage over the rest of the round, and it can sometimes be the game changer. So that's kind of why I like the Wukong in that situation. So this is the round where I'm looking for a Gwynsus. If I don't find the Gwynsus, I'm just going to get another 2-star Ezreal, sell the current Ezreal, and then give the Shojin's to the Ashe. Not ideal, definitely not the way I recommend playing this. This was just me kind of testing limits and seeing what I could do. But there was no recurve bow here, so it's very unlikely that I'm going to find the components. So what I basically end up doing right now is just look for another 3-star Ezreal, and as soon as I find the 3-star Ezreal, we're in a situation where we essentially want to swap that out for the Ashe. I rolled down a little bit more aggressively than I should have done, looking for that Ezreal, but that's perfectly okay. So this is my first loss for a while. It's a Mech Infiltrator player, and I just wasn't really paying attention to who I was going to be facing, and the Wukong ended up getting me. There's the Ezreal. So this is what we do. We sell the Ezreal. We give the next Shojin's to the Ashe, and we go to level 8 to add the Kassadin, and then we bring in the Thresh. We're going to give Thief's Gloves over to my Caitlyn. We're going to give Ezreal my Trap Claw for the corner bait, and we're going to give a Locket of the Iron Solari over to Wukong just to protect my front line a little bit more. But you're going to start seeing how much my Ashe is ulting every single round. It is actually hilarious. So because we have a Thresh, what I like to do is keep my unit full on my bench with units that are actually useful. And in this scenario, I want to have the Lulu and the Lulu, the Shen, the Wukong are all really good units to bring on, as is the Ashe because she might even get one ultimate off. And we're actually in a super strong position now. We're in a situation where Ashe is just going to constantly ult, even through the demo Gangplank ultimate here. I mean, just look at the Ashe ulting; it's actually just insane. The attack speed this composition gets, it's not a meme. Like, if you get the right items, this is just not a meme. It's actually super good. What I'm aiming for here, I think, is the Celestial Orb, but I don't get it. Wait, no, did I get a chance for the Celestial Orb? I don't even know what I took. Okay, on hindsight, I should have gone for the Celestial Orb. The Celestial Orb would have allowed me at level 9 to go for Celestial with the Lulu. What I do end up adding is getting as a Gwynsus Rage Blade, which actually for my Ezreal isn't too bad, because the more that my Ezreal can ult, the better as well. Which is okay. Do you know what? I'm happy with the Gwynsus, although I do think the Celestial Orb would have allowed me to be more powerful at level 9 with a bit more sustain added to the composition. In terms of positioning, my Wukong is not in the best position. He's not really making use of the Locket of the Iron Solari right now. There is a pros and cons of putting Wukong out in the front by himself there. Basically, he's going to take more damage and therefore generate more mana in his position, but he's also, again, not making use of the Locket of the Iron Solari. So the way I would kind of switch it is like this. You know, this is essentially one of the best ways that I'm going to make use of the Locket of the Iron Solari. It's going to allow me to get everybody on the front line affected. And this is what I've changed my positioning up now to have Ashe a little bit further forward, not making the best use of the sniper bonus, but also is protecting herself more so from Infiltrator. So in this particular circumstance, just look at her untouched against 3-star Shaco and 3-star Kai'Sa, and actually knocks him out of the game because she was kind of untouched with that positioning. So we get a really, we get the Mimi 3-item cane. Someone gets a double Infinity Edge and a Locket, which is insane. I end up getting is that a Last Whisper or an Ionic Spark, a Jeweled Gauntlet, and a Ludens, which Ionic Spark is not bad on Wukong. I give the Ludens to the Kassadin, and I give the Jeweled Gauntlet over to the Ezreal just because his ultimate can deal a lot of damage. I don't think it was like the worst set of items I could have gotten, but it definitely wasn't the best set of items that I could have gotten either. So this guy is playing like a full cybernetic with a lot of 3-stars. He's got a double Infinity Edge Irelia with a Quicksilver Sash, but just watch my Ashe Chrono composition pop off. We beat him and knock him out. We knock out the double Infinity Edge Irelia player with the overpowered Ashe spam arrow build. It's actually really funny. This build is not a meme. I know everyone thinks that this build is a meme, but this build is not a meme. This build is actually pretty legit. And what we're going to do at level 9 is we're going to look to add in another Thresh. Now, ideally, what I would have loved was to be able to get the Celestial Orb, so I could have added the Lulu. Unfortunately, in this scenario, the Gangplank absolutely screws me, but the Ezreal almost carries me. Ezreal actually almost solo carries me in this instance because the 6 Chrono Gwynsu's buff is actually pretty strong. We level up to 9, I think. Do we sell something here? Yeah, we almost level up to 9, and then we just add the extra Thresh. The extra Thresh is just going to be looking to pull in units that are important. So the Lulu is important, the Ashe can work, the Shen provides a little bit of safety as well. With a double Thresh, we're going to be pulling in lots of units. This is the guy playing 6 Blade Masters. 6 Blade Masters isn't a bad build, but you kind of need your Kayle to be like a super carry, and we just absolutely dominate. Unfortunately, we're reverse as a Ghost, so we couldn't really have the impact that we wanted. And in terms of items here, Celestial Orb would have been ideal, but someone takes it, so I can't get it. So we end up going for we tried to go for the Giant Slayer, end up going for the Last Whisper. Last Whisper is not exactly good at all. In fact, Last Whisper is actually kind of garbage. We end up just giving it to the Kassadin anyway. Not the best items that we could have had in the world. We end up rolling, just looking for maybe a 2-star Thresh. Can't find one, but we still are just going to be pulling in really important units. We're pulling in an Ashe, Shen, Lulu. All of them are going to be really, really good. So I'm pretty happy with the way it's going. Again, position Ashe in a safe position. She's just going to be spamming her ultimate as much as physically possible. Even versus the Yi, we win that one and we end up winning the game. This build is not a meme. It's actually really good. And I hope you guys give it a test because it's just very fun as well. It's a really fun build, which I think is important also.